All right, welcome everyone again. Today we're going to focus on your post reports, and I'm glad to see so many people here today to practice with us, with each other. We're going to have a really, really fun session today. Let me share my screen. Awesome. So today, as you know, the end of the academic year is approaching, we're going to be focusing on post reports. And we're going to focus on them from the lens of program improvement, right? We want to use the information in these reports to identify opportunities to improve your programs. So today, I'm going to introduce the type of reflection we want to practice today. I'll show you where to find a main resource you can use to reflect individually, but also with your team. And we're going to practice. We're going to practice individually. We're going to practice a little bit in small groups. Then we'll debrief as a group, and I'll send you off with a call to action. And so today, we are focusing again on program impacts, right? Your post report is showing you the impact that your program is having on young people's SEL or social and emotional learning. And everyone in this room has a desire to understand the impact of the programs in the community, right? When most of our members reflect on a post report, they naturally want to go to this question: how good is really my program, right? And so they naturally tend to ask questions like, can I compare myself to other programs? Can I compare this year's program to iterations in the past? And the invitation I want to make today is, let's fully explore the impacts you see in the post report as is, before you even try to compare your program to others or to past versions of your own program. Understanding your program impact is much like peeling an onion. Okay, so each layer you peel back gives you a better sense of your program's impact. And so the better you reflect with your team on this first layer of data, on what you have in the report right now, the easier it will be to craft an impact story later, but also to get into more complicated analysis like comparing yourself to other programs or to prior versions of your same program. And so today what we're gonna do as a practice exercise is to reflect on a very specific section of our post report, right? And so the goal is to get familiar with the reflection questions I'm going to share with you so that you can bring them to your team and apply to your own report later. And so first, we're going to open a fake post report, okay? And in the chat, we're going to share the link to this report, and we're all going to pretend like this is a report for your own program, okay? We're going to focus on the capacity section to keep things simple, and because that's the section where you most clearly see the impact of your program. And we're going to use a reflection worksheet that was newly added to the section so that we can reflect on program impacts and sort of practice and model and share our experiences going through this first layer of data interpretation. I'm going to show you where to find the report, where to find the worksheet, the reflection worksheet. But before, let me tell you that I'm going to give you 5 minutes to explore the worksheet individually. You can download it onto your computers, and I'm going to focus on the first page of the worksheet to keep things very, very simple. You'll have 5 minutes to review the questions, answer one or two, pretending like the report you're looking at is your program's report. And then we're going to break out into small groups so that you can share your first impression with the worksheet. Feel free to introduce yourselves and talk about the work you do. That's a very important part of today's session too. So network and get to know other programs in the field. And I would love for you to discuss this question. How might you use this worksheet with your team, right? And so every organization has a different structure and they have different routines and preferences. And I would love to rescue and uncover all of these different ways in which you can set up a reflection focused on program improvement across programs. And so let me show you where to find things. We're gonna share the link to this report in the chat. And so when you're in the report, you're gonna toggle to see the post report and find the capacity section. And sorry, this may be too small. Okay, so toggle here to go to the post report, and then we're gonna look at the capacities section. Okay, in the capacity section, you are going to see the numbers related to the impact of your program, right? Specifically here on this column, the success or succeeded column. And the worksheet is going to be right here on this reflect guide that was newly added to our reports. You're going to navigate to this guide, and then the second button will have a worksheet you can open and you can review here, but you can also download it so that you can fill it in, right? So there's a fillable PDF. So as long as you download it, you're going to be able to type the names of the capacities you're identifying and then answer different questions. Now, before we move on, does anybody have any questions about the exercise, about the practice session today? And if your question is, yes, you're going to get a recording of the session. Any other questions about how we're going to practice today? All right, so feel free to type any questions in the chat if you have them as we reflect. And so I'm going to move back to the instructions so that you see what I want you to do now. So in the next 5 minutes, I want you to explore this section of the report and review the first page of this worksheet. And if you have time, answer one or two of these questions. I don't think we're going to have time to answer any of them. And again, pretend as if this report reflects the impact of your own program. So I see that we have shared the link to the report. That's perfect. I will also share the link to the PDF, just in case it's easier for you to find there in the chat. Awesome. So I'll give you 5 minutes, and in 5 minutes, we're gonna reconvene and break you out in small groups so that you guys can share your first impressions with this reflection guide and then answer how you might use it with your own team. I hope that most of you got an opportunity to review the first page of the worksheet. Again, in 5 minutes, you were never going to be able to fill it out completely or fully reflect on those questions. But what we were interested in was give you a first experience so that you can share with people who work in similar roles or in similar fields across our community. First impressions on how to use this type of reflection worksheet to improve your own program. So right now, we're going to create rooms and break you into small groups. And again, feel free to introduce each other, talk about what you do, what's your mission, what kind of program you implement, and then try to answer the question that's on the screen. How might you use this worksheet with your team? And then when we come back, we're going to debrief on your first impression with the worksheet and on your answers to this question. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to wait 1 or 2 more minutes to get everybody back into the main room. Awesome. All right, welcome back. I hope that you had some time to share, meet new people, get to know how other folks do a similar how other organizations implement, different programs, but sometimes with a very similar mission. Let me get your first impressions with the worksheet to get started. Who would love to share what was your first impression by when you looked at the questions or when you looked at the format of the worksheet? And please feel free to share on the mic or in the chat, whatever you like.
I like that the worksheet was sharing the wins first through the highest success of the capacities.
Awesome. Why?
Because I think that allows staff and the people administering the program to really come in with a positive attitude and underline what worked well. And then, that sandwich where you do a positive opportunity for growth and then a positive, I think it's set up to do that. So that's good.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And it's easy to forget sometimes that there's so much going on and so much learning going on in your programs that, there are many wins that are not captured by our report, or many impacts of your programs that are not captured by our report or any kind of report. And so I love that idea of starting with wins and things that actually you did contribute to, or you did see change in a positive way. I love that. What else? Who else had a thought when looking at the worksheet?
There's one question that says, what current activities and strategies are used to promote this capacity? And I was wondering if the worksheet, I guess this is like a hypothetical survey that we're looking at, but I was wondering if the workshop sheet was asking people to reflect on their own program and think about specific examples from of activities or whatnot from their own program, or if this was some information that was contained in the post-program survey that I was missing.
No, that's exactly right. So the purpose of the worksheet is to guide you and your team through the reflection and the identification of what actually caused or contributed to the impacts of your program, right? So if you see changes in, let's say, positive identity, right? You see a high rate of success in positive identity. The idea is to think through what are some of the content or the activities in your program that explicitly promote a sense of a positive identity, right? That's not always easy, and it's not always evident or explicit. And the idea is to make those strategies more explicit so that you can then reflect on, okay, if these are the things that are causing the impact, then how are we implementing them? How are we preparing our staff to implement those strategies, right? What tweaks can we make to these strategies and so on? Does that make sense, Mira?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Let me move on then to the main question for the groups. What are some of your ideas on how you might use this worksheet with your team or, in a larger group environment?
I have previously tried to share the capacities like as it's shown in the report with my team, and I think it's overwhelming for them. So having this worksheet to just distill on like the two highest ones and focusing, I guess, all of this data, because it definitely was too much information all at once for everyone. I wanted to share this with all of our staff. So having this worksheet to make it much simpler for everyone to see would be super valuable. And yeah, I want to use this moving forward.
That's awesome. And you are touching on something that is very important, and I always like to remind people. Although I know all of your programs are awesome, it's really, really hard to focus on impacts across multiple areas. And so when you're reflecting, especially when you're reflecting to identify opportunities for improvement, is always best to start slow and focus on one or two things at a time and not try to identify all the impacts and all the strategies you use at the same time, because then things are very hard to digest and think through. Does that make sense, Nikki?
Yes, that did. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other ideas on how you might use this worksheet with your team? All right. We have a quiet group today. That's okay. That's always okay. Let me send you off with a call to action. Okay. So you reflected a bit on some questions, but the real exercise is to use this worksheet, and then the worksheet you'll see in the experiences section, to connect the dots between what you observe on a day-to-day basis and what you see in the report. Okay. So take the questions at face value. Some of them will make more sense than others in the beginning, but I invite you to complete at least the full post-capacities reflection worksheet, which is the one you were looking at today. If you feel like taking on a challenge, reflect and fill out the post-experiences reflection worksheet, which you will find. Sorry, let me show you right now, so I can send you off with that too. So we were looking at the capacity section, right? If you go to the experiences section in your report, in your post report, you'll see a very similar button, reflect button, that will take you to a reflect guide. And there too, you will find a similar worksheet, but this time focused on the experiences, okay? When you fill out both, you're going to start connecting the dots and having a very explicit story of impact. And it'll definitely help you identify opportunities for improvement, opportunities for professional development, and so on. Now, if you're feeling like you need an accountability buddy, let me be that for you. And so feel free to email me your worksheet, complete or halfway through It doesn't matter. I would love to see where the reflection takes you and how you're peeling the onion or this first layer of analysis and interpretation before you go on and do more complicated things. And the last note in the call to action is, I want to invite you to check out this LinkedIn group that we created recently, and we're starting to post more consistently, where we are trying to bring some of the topics from the practice and progress sessions into this LinkedIn group and try to develop more of a discussion format there, so that, you know, whenever people have questions or things to share in a synchronous way, you can do it there. We'll send you a follow-up email with everything you saw during this session. And I would love to see you in our next practice and progress session. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon.